Review of the pre-falls.
Call this meeting to order the Fire Station Building Committee. Tonight is Wednesday, January 24th, time's 4:30, and we're in the Veterans Room in Town Hall. Roll call, please.
Joe Ulick,
Present.
Mike Langevin, Jeff
Excused.
Matthews,
Present.
Mike Julian,
Present.
Dave Langevin,
Present.
and John Shipman. We have a quorum.
All right, the approval of the minutes from the January 17th, are there any changes or things that need to be adjusted in the minutes for January 17th?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, those present. All right, review and approval of the action for development of the project to include but not limited to update of the demolition and remediation of the Snow Street properties. So, quickly, we did receive 6 bids that closed yesterday at 10 o'clock. At this moment, it appears that Costello Dismantling, the same company that did the commercial structure, was the low bidder at $212,000. And then I'll let Rick go from there.
Well, thank you. We actually had a call today with Costello. The bid form checked out, everything was signed, everything was copacetic with that. We had a call with Costello today. Jennifer, Brennan, myself, and Alex from Costello. Alex
Clegg.
Clegg. Yeah, I was going to say Craig, but Alex Clegg, to qualify the bid and review it. Brennan put him through the ropes to make sure he had included everything and covered everything, and looks like they're good to go. The bid itself was $212,000. If you recall, we had talked to Costello about doing this work during when they were in contract before, and their first proposal to us was $293,000 as a change order, and that had some exclusions, namely excavation and removal of some underground utility lines back to the building, and excavation and removal of any soils from the site. We since looked at that proposal. This was back in August of 2023. We looked at that proposal and any cost-saving measures that we could implement, and basically was we had reduced the amount of grading that was necessary, in the sense of making a smooth site, not completely level, but grade off the foundation area and minimize the backfill and grading. And the price came down to $238,150. We had some further conversations with them, and they offered us a lump sum proposal, a negotiated proposal at $209. So I feel that the proposal that they're offering to us now at $212, which the other proposals are not valid, they weren't accepted at the time, we can't go back to them. The proposal at $212 is more and less in line with the $238,000 proposal, but some additional scope items that we've added. So, you know, if we were negotiating it back then, maybe it was going to come in at $250,000. So I think we've done okay getting the bids at $212. If you also look at the other bids, there's one bid that's close. But there's 2 bids that are close at 240, 242, 244, and 262, and then it jumps up to 310. So, which tells me that Costello was aggressive at this, but the real number is probably in that 240 range, which I think probably was comparable to what we had gotten that last, the
Right.
proposals before. So I think that they were aggressive towards it, and I see no reason why not to accept it. I don't think, I know you're not gonna do any better. This is the second time we've done this now.
Yeah.
We tried to negotiate it during construction. The committee decided to pass on it at that time. We put it back out to bid. They're a low bidder at $212, and the high bidder is at $310. So my guess is if you pass on this now and put it in the general bid, you're still going to be seeing that type of value, but in the general bid, and the general contractor's going to put his markup on it. He's going to take this cost and he's going to hit it with, his general conditions and markup, so on and so forth. So I think that the exercise was a very good exercise. It saved the town some money. Unless you have any really good reason to pass on it, I would recommend that you move forward with it. They're going to be doing the abatement in the traditional method as compared to the non-traditional method. And it gets a little technical, but just to make it simple for you, the traditional method is when there's not a lot of commingling of materials, and they pull things apart. There's not a special permit that's required for it. There is a permit with the DEP required, but under a traditional method, and it requires less oversight from tie and bond. So the oversight costs would be less than if they went with the non-traditional method. So they can start immediately. You know, they originally said in the call, we'd be looking at the spring, but we told them that was not what our desire was. It was the town's desire to get these buildings done as soon as possible. So I don't think they took this job planning on doing it based upon doing it in the spring. I think he was just throwing it out there, but he did say that they would jump right on
They said
it.
they could do it, yep.
It would be about 3 weeks for the abatement, 3 weeks for the demo, and they're relying on mulch provided by the town.
Yep.
And any surplus soils that would be needed would be provided by the town, but it doesn't look like there would be a need for surplus soils. Just to be clear, when we're done with this, there will be a little bit of a gully where each building sat. But that'll be graded. They'll be stealing some soil from the banks and smoothing it out. I think we're looking for nothing less than 3 feet.
Nothing more than,
Excuse me.
nothing more than 3 feet.
Yeah, nothing more than 3 feet
So it's
deep.
not too much of a depression, yep.
And I think that was it. Utilities back to the street, capped at the main. We'd have to check with the DPW to see if they allow street openings in the winter. If not, we have the choice of waiting to do it in this, when they allow street openings, or having them cut it just this side of the.
Yeah, cut it at the curb.
Yeah.
If I recall, they already have scoped all of the locations out, correct? Yeah,
Mhm.
we already paid for that once.
Yes.
Okay.
Fencing. I'm sorry, Jennifer, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I thought there was an opening, but.
Yeah, no, there still is.
But, well, fencing was, we did give them the option of using some town fencing that was written into the specifications that they could use, up to, I think it was 200 linear feet of fencing. But I was gonna ask about the mulch, if we want to get into the loading. That was the one thing that we found
Yeah.
during our discussion was we did clearly indicate on the drawings that they owned loading of mulch at DPW. Loading, transporting, hauling it over here, unloading it, that the mulch was free, but doing the work to get it to the site and dealing with it was up to them. He has an issue with the loading. Not has an issue, but he missed the loading part. And it would be a help if DPW had loading equipment to load at DPW's yard. Otherwise, they'd have to bring equipment over to DPW's yard to do loading.
What I said to him was that it really depends upon where this mulch is being stored. If it's being stored in an active area where there is loading equipment, then perhaps we can work something out. If it's being stored, way off site and the DPW would have to bring loading equipment over there, then it's.
So I'll have to have some discussion on that because the sewer plant is essentially where this is. It's not at Gulfwood Road, it's at the sewer plant. There is a loader there, but they are a contractor for the town, so
Yeah.
I may be able, if we're talking about a day of material moving or maybe two, I can have that conversation, but if it's gonna be an extended period of time, it's probably less likely.
Sure, and we can cross that bridge when we get there.
But the town could always bring their brand new loader down.
Yeah, and like I said, if it's a day or something,
Yeah.
I'm sure we can figure that part of it out, but, if it's an extended, if they anticipate it being more than that.
I can't see that.
I wouldn't think it would be a lot, but,
Just,
And maybe have the conversation that if the town's willing to provide the loader on site for that, if he's willing to provide additional trucks to do it faster.
oh, I
Maybe.
see, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Dave?
Just, and I could have missed it when you were just talking, so didn't you say it was 209 and it's 212 now?
212.
Where did the $3,000 discrepancy come in? It's just, hey, it's money.
no,
That's all.
2209 in a previous proposal that they put out.
Negotiate.
Back in August.
Yeah,
Okay.
Like,
that was an
long
offer
ago.
that they had made last August, when we were negotiating down their change order. If we had accepted it at that time, we would have done it for 209. So that's what.
But Ed, I think if you,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that there's actually additional scope in this new, so yes, it is $3,000 more, but there's additional scope in the project from what the 209 was.
I probably already know this question again, though. In the grand scheme, it's chump change, but then nothing's chump change for us because can't we skip the mulch? I mean, like,
Dust
help
control.
us a little?
No.
And we require it for everybody else, so.
Right.
I know, but man, we're sinking. We're trying to climb out
The
a
thing
little.
is, we have the mulch. We already have the mulch done at the sewer treatment plant. In the back, there's a huge pile of it. So the actual material shouldn't be costing us anything. The only thing that we should be paying for is trucking and the loading to get it over there. But yeah, no, under the building code, it has to be capped with something, and we can't loom and seed it at this time of year, so.
Right. Oh, it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
worth it.
I went and did the background, took the pictures of the piles, made sure there was enough material, all that stuff, so, we tried to keep it down as low as possible.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Costello as the contract as bidded for 212 for destruction of the properties of Snow Street 17 and 23.
I'll second that.
All right, and just add that, allow the town manager to sign any contracts and authorize the OPM to, advance the process. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all is in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of those present.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So the next step would be I'll prepare a notice of award and get it over to the town manager to put it on their letterhead and send it off to Costello. And the contract form has already been utilized once, so it's just a modification of a few items, and I think that KBA, you normally do that, right? So the contract form would be established by KBA, and then we would just be receiving the insurance certificates and signed contract, and we should be, as soon as we get all of that back, then we would issue a notice to proceed. So it's a notice of award, contract, insurance, certs, and notice to proceed. And it would seem to me that that could take place pretty quickly. There's no review of the documents needed. We've already been through this cycle with Costello, so it's basically just changing the original documents to the new information and pushing the button.
Okay. And as we discussed, the fire department intends on doing some last minute training before the buildings come down, which would include putting holes in the roofs and stuff like that. So once we have everything signed, if we can get a clear idea of when they want to start, because obviously I don't want to leave the buildings like that for a long period of time, but I also don't want to be doing the training with them dropping off equipment either. So.
Right.
Would it be, for Costello, they've got to mobilize, so they've got to get a fence in place to secure the site, get their erosion control in place. It would almost seem to make sense to do your training after the site has been fenced in.
Good.
If you're not leaving it insecure, of course. The only thing, I'd like to check with Ty and Bond, because I do know that we have asbestos containing material in the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps we get all the ACMs off first, get it stripped, and then, because you're cutting your holes, so I don't know how you deal with that.
I didn't see that in their report.
I thought
But
that
I
maybe they
thought-
went up there and they didn't find it then.
Yeah, we should confirm.
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
And I believe that was only on the big one anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll find out what
Yep.
what the limits are. And we just don't want to be spreading things around.
Yeah.
So their first initial bid was over 300,000 and we rejected it, right?
293.
Oh, I thought there was one more before that, then they dropped.
No, it's 293 to 238, and then 209 was the last.
See, it's gameplay, it's awful. They had their equipment there, everything. Well, that's their problem. But still savings.
There were some little things here and there, like they didn't need to import soil, but one of their revised negotiated things, I think, had already excluded the soil. But the original one, the 293, probably had importing the soil. I'd have to go back and check. But little things changed here and there. The fencing, they probably wanted more of the fencing the first time around. Whereas now we said, there's 200 linear feet to use. There's some little tweaks.
All right, so moving on from the bids and contract award, Rick, you had talked about being prepared to have some discussion about potential changes to the full project bid with the site work. And
Yes.
still,
If I may, before we go into that, we still have the matter of the memorial tree.
tree's gone.
It is gone?
Yep, we already moved it.
Okay,
It's all done.
okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you, Butler. I seen it gone though, yeah.
Okay, I had misunderstood which one it was then.
That's all right. It ended up happening pretty quickly. The local tree guy ended up going. I did most of the
Trimming.
separating and trimming of it, and then drawing a blank at the gentleman's name. Steve, I know is his first name.
Steve Brady?
Brady, yes, from the Opakam Land Trust. And then he went with a crew and they did a reduction of the root ball and separated the roots. And the DPW was able to move some stuff around and just take it out in one scoop and went with it, so.
Okay, good, thank you. So, we were talking about the bidding method. It gets complicated, so if I go down a wrong track, I'm assuming that Jennifer and Michael will get me clear on it. But the traditional way that I would say, we bid sites, when I say we, I mean the team, is that there's performance standards that are included in the plans and specifications, and there is a log of geotechnical borings that are included that have already been completed. And those geotechnical borings identify the depth of different soils on the site. And traditionally what a contractor will do is they'll take, because the borings are not everywhere, you can't, do borings for the whole site, so they'll take the information and create a two-dimensional graph, and take the depths of the borings and where the materials are, and then draw lines between those borings so they can establish the depths of material that need to be removed, the depths of material that may be able to stay, and the replacement quantities. And they'll go through and do a cut and fill analysis of the site. And that's the way that this project was bid the first time around. We had heard some inkling from at least one contractor, I had heard anyways, that the site was complex and that he was overly conservative when he bid it because of that. And the reason that the site is complex is that we have the geotechnical borings that we're dealing with, but we also have environmental borings that we're dealing with, in that we're dealing with urban fill material for the majority of the site. And urban fill is a combination of soils, grains, stones, bricks, could be construction material. It's a widely known classification. And urban fill is traditionally mildly contaminated. It's not dangerous. It's just it's a mild contamination material. So in those areas where the urban fill has been classified, that has to be handled one way. In areas where we have structural soils that can remain, that has to be handled another way. In areas where we have unsuitable structural bearing materials, that has to be sorted and dealt with in a different way. So we have three or four different material classifications that have to be dealt with as we go through the site. And any material, we have a good amount of material. We've estimated somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 cubic yards of material that will go off-site. And that material has to be controlled removal, in the sense that
Go ahead, when you're done.
okay, that material has to be a controlled disposal, and because it is classified as urban fill, it just can't go anywhere. It has to go to certain facilities. And there's two different fills that locations you can go to: a beneficial reuse facility, and landfill as a cover. So it's not as if the material has to go off,
Do we need it? Anybody know whether we need it for our own landfill?
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the components that we're going to be driving to, is that there may be an opportunity where the town could utilize this material. And
The old landfill off of Town Dump Road has never have been capped.
so
Okay.
having all the soil tested, the situation that we have is that we'll talk with Ty and Bond, but the material that we're delivering can't be widely different than the material to the site that we're delivering it to. So that's why a landfill is perfect for that, because a landfill has already exceeded the levels that our material is. So having all of that information, we felt that the way that I'm describing it right now is called an unclassified site project. In other words, we give basic information to the contractor, and then it's up to them to sort out what the quantities are and where it has to go. We'd like the committee to consider, our proposal is to bid this as a classified site, in the sense that all of the quantities are given to the contractor, so there's no guessing. All of the contractors bid on the same quantities. And the guesswork, I shouldn't call it guesswork, but the analysis work is completed by a professional site work estimator, and they provide the quantities. If, as an example, we're calling to go down 12 feet until we get to a suitable subgrade, and bringing that up with structural material, that would be a certain quantity. If in the estimate, we would provide cubic yardage. So say we said, you know, there's 5,000 cubic yards of unsuitable material that needs to come out of the site, that needs to go to a landfill as cover. That's what the contractor bids on. If it turns out, and then we ask unit prices from the contractor for that same material and that same action. So if it turns out to be 4,000 cubic yards, and we get a credit of 1,000 cubic yards at the unit price that was provided. If it turns out to be 6,000 cubic yards, then they get an extra for that same value. What this does for us, though, is it puts us in a controlled situation. So all of the contractors are bidding on it the same way, so we're getting more competitive bidding. And that would be, there's 3 or 4 different classified materials that would be handled under. But it gives us a much better control on the project. And I'll give you a very good example. If we told the contractor, the site contractor, we wanted you to install 2,900 cubic yards of asphalt pavement, 3.5 inches thick. They know exactly what they're installing. 2,900 cubic yards of asphalt pavement at 3 inches thick. We're not asking them to say, give us pavement out here, and you estimate how much it is, and then we'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. That's basically the difference. Same with a foundation. You know, we have a certain size foundation. They know the dimensional restrictions of the foundation. They know the footing. They know the rebar that's going in it. So they can provide a solid number on what that foundation cost is. With site and earth and material, there are always, I'm sorry. With site work and earth and materials, relying on test borings, you know, that are 50 feet or 100 feet apart, there's always a chance that you have an 8-foot depth here of unsuitables and a 12-foot depth here. You could have a drop in the middle that goes down to 26 feet that you don't know about. Or you could have a spike that goes to 3 feet that you don't know about. You can't always assume that you can draw a line, straight line across, and that's where your value is going to be. So we've had a lot of conversations on this, and we had a follow-up one today, and we've had some good debate back and forth. But you know, I think that we're in consensus. I'm looking at Jennifer. I know Michael and I are in.
Yeah, I'm good now.
So my first question is, if you haven't guessed already, I am a skeptical guy. I would assume that involves having more borings done.
We didn't talk about that option.
Yeah, we didn't
Actually.
talk about doing more options. But what we did talk about was having a professional estimator estimate the cuts and fills the same way a site contractor would.
When you talk about that, are you talking just the footprint of the building or the whole?
No,
Entire site.
The whole site?
Entire
No.
site, yeah.
We're concerned with what goes under the pavement, we're concerned with obviously what goes under the building foundations,
Well, that'd be my concern,
yeah.
the building,
Mhm.
but the parking lot?
Yeah, there's still like 18 inches, I believe it is, of, you know, a certain soil that needs to,
Yeah,
especially, you know, we're talking the apparatus and stuff driving
Oh,
it. So we
yeah,
do
yeah.
need suitable soils under the pavement, and in some cases, they might need to excavate to. I mean,
normally,
we have cuts and we have fills,
Yeah.
there's the corner of the site where 17 and 23 are, that goes up, some of that's, a lot of that's taken
come
out.
in.
It's just, it is a complicated site
Because
with,
normally they pave to hide this stuff. But,
it's a complicated site.
In our conversations, Ty and Bond did mention that they may like to grab a couple samples in the residence area.
Mm-hmm.
That's the-
They didn't have enough information on that, and, you know, where the demolition's gonna be going on now. They didn't do many borings there, or they didn't do any pits. test pits, right?
They
Yeah,
didn't.
'cause
So they
we
wanted to
didn't
do
own
a
the
couple of
property.
test pits to see if that might, we might be able to adjust the amount of soil, urban soil, if you will, down. That might help us better identify the number, but not a lot of additional testing. Just, a couple of test pits to see what's on those properties. But the thing is, normally we wouldn't do this. Everything's up to the bidders. You take your chances. But with only getting 2 bids and them being quite different, and we're trying to, first of all, encourage more bidding. How do you do that? Well, maybe you make bidding site, which is the most difficult one to be precise about, make it a little bit easier in that, okay, here are the numbers, you bid, you're all bidding the same amount, and we would probably say if the number comes out to be, and I think we determined under the building is like 3,660 yards that we know has to come out, well, maybe we estimate that to be, 4,500 or something. So we have a bit of a cushion in the numbers, and more likely, hopefully, that there would be a reduction rather than that. But there is always a risk because we don't know exactly what's happening. And frankly, I haven't dealt too much with this urban soil phenomenon, which is something,
It's a first for me too.
yeah, Ty and Bond talks about as being in many places. I've never come across it before, honestly. But we haven't done, too many fire stations that are in downtown urban areas. But apparently this area, at least the lower part of it, has been used a couple of different times for a few different things. And there's metal in there, brick.
Yeah. I was
It's-
present for the first test pits that were there, and it basically looked like a triple decker had been pushed over into the hole kind of thing. So
Yeah, so that's what we're dealing with. And frankly, if this is something we knew perhaps in day one, we might have taken a different approach. We might have been asking to do that up front. But it's really, this time bond information is really kind of a last minute thing. And then complicated with the fact that the bidding produced radically different bids, which we don't want to go through again.
yeah.
We think it's worth investing a little money in coming up with a better estimate by a professional estimator of soils and equal the playing field.
And he's not estimating the entire site package, just the cuts and fills.
Yeah,
Just to give us a better feel of the quantities. And there's a risk, there's always a risk in site work. And usually it's the site contractor who's taking the majority of that risk because they're making
well,
assumptions.
maybe handsomely rewarded for it.
Yeah, a lot of times they do, yeah, and they're making the assumptions between point A and B, unless there's some drastic differences between the two. But what happens is when you have a lot of different variables, and this is what it was, the way it was described to me, was that when you have a number of different variables, including the urban fill, and where it can go, they have to be ultra conservative to make sure that they're minimizing their risk so the person I spoke to indicated he had added a lot to his contingency because of what he felt were uncertainties.
And we can further reduce the risk if there is a site in town where we can use this material.
Absolutely.
And stopping you there, who is it, Anna or
Anna,
somebody? All right.
Anna knows all about the old
Landfill,
dump.
yeah.
Yeah, the old landfill, not the one we just
So
closed,
if we
'cause
can
that's already capped.
tell the bidders, this soil will go to this address. So, that makes it even easier for them to bid it.
So Mr. Manager, just to bring you up to speed, one of the things that was discussed is one of the soils that needs to be removed from the site could potentially go to our old landfill as a cap material, as opposed to having it taken somewhere else. So we're gonna put some people together for that. John?
So are we looking to do this as a separate entity to get the site work done?
No.
Or why don't we?
Because it's not a final sub-bid.
Yeah.
And there are reasons, historical reasons why it's not. Frankly, my thinking is this is their cushion. What I want to do is, or what we want to do is take away the chances that they're really padding the cushion.
Mhm.
You know, here are the numbers, you bid your numbers, and now we know, we can compare, this guy bid it at this cost, this one at this cost. What you're supposed to do, and when you do things like that, just give quantities so that you can say, we know if they're carrying 5,000 cubic yards of this, now we know, based on their unit price, they're playing fair, they're playing even, and, it will work for them or against them, depending on if there's less of the material or more of the material. So it's a way to take away risk, encourage more bidding, but also discourage padding the bids for unknowns or things that they think they might be able to manage a different way.
There's a second element to John's question, though. And I think you were suggesting, why not just carve the site contractor right out of the job and bid it separately?
Yeah, and give the contractor a clean lot to build on. I think we talked about that one time.
Well, it's an interesting concept. But the only way that would truly work is if you gave them a pad-ready site,
That's what I
but
mean.
that contractor was not contracted to do anything else from that. It would be breaking things up. I think that there may be value to having it under the GC's control from a timing and sequencing perspective.
Yeah.
But I would never carve the site contract out completely. Because if there's one, other than the general contractor, I always look at the site contractor as being the most important sub on the job. Because they're there in the beginning, all the way through to the end.
There's one thing about, giving them a pad ready,
Yeah,
but the contractor has to lay out and control excavation for foundations, and, a whole bunch of other things. So, Chapter 149 does not contemplate separating site work. Chapter 30 does, but Chapter 30 only, has to do with, no building, no three-dimensional things, only site work. And to do that, in this case, and then still the contractor has to go in and excavate, now it's gonna be one of these, I just found 2, foot depth more of
Gotcha.
bad material that now I have to replace, that he didn't replace, wow. I don't think any of us want that.
Yeah. Not to mention, we have extensive retaining walls along Snow that need to go in order to make it pad ready, so it
Yeah.
increases the scope considerably.
Theoretically, if you could say the site contractors are gonna do all the foundations, maybe, but that, Chapter 149 does not contemplate that.
I would love-
Public work in Massachusetts is pretty controlled.
I would love to be able to get together with whomever would be responsible for that landfill. Figure out
Yeah.
what, because, not only is it, if the material is going out of town into, say, in a neighboring town, there's a trucking cost, but there's also a tipping fee. People charge, when they know they can charge, they charge for a tipping fee. So, the trucking is gonna be the trucking, but if you're not paying for a tipping fee, which usually is pretty expensive when you're dealing with mildly contaminated materials, if we could avoid that, that's perfect.
And that's something you should understand, this urban soil, if you will, is mildly contaminated. It's got stuff in it that's not normal, that's not naturally occurring. But you can still use it for, as we said, you know, capping, and some other beneficial uses that some of it doesn't have to even be used as a landfill. It
Right.
can it can fill up a hole anywhere. There are certain conditions in terms of what the soil there has to be like, but we can work that out.
John, you good? All right, Cap, and then Councilor Marquetti.
Yeah, obviously our intent is to try to save as much money in the back end as possible. Do we have a ballpark figure as to what it might cost us to have somebody to come in and get those numbers?
I don't know if you heard back from Peter.
I haven't yet, so I don't know.
We're contacting an estimator,
Mhm.
but it's not a huge number.
Yeah, it's just site, it's just a component of the site work.
Yeah.
Right.
And the site work estimate is just a component of the overall estimate.
Right.
And we were doing the full building, including site work, for about, I think, 15,000.
And that might have been, was that even two estimates?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, so now it's just a small section of it.
You know,
So
a fraction of that.
I think it's worth pursuing.
Councilor?
He asked the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get, we're certainly open to it, and obviously we'd have to see some numbers as to what the cost would be. I'm sure if, we're talking about a few more test pits, we can arrange that with the DPW. The only thing that I would ask is I just do not want to go through the same crap with Ty and Bond and others of, if there's 3 guys that need to look at the hole, I want all 3 people there at the same time, not
Right.
we have to open the hole 3 times.
I think the big win is gonna be if the town can take the material.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge difference.
That was the first thing that Ty and Bob asked us, right? First, do they have anywhere else they can use the soil? Huge savings.
I'm gonna get, I'll get the classifications of material and I can send it off to you, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll tag the 4 of us in an email in the morning. Anything else on that topic? Rick?
No.
All right, is there anything we need to add to the rebidding options at this point? That kind of covered it for now.
Well, we will, the state will require that pre-qualification process be completed again. So, that's something that we're gonna have to talk about when we're ready to get it back out of the street, or depending upon, we don't really know when it'll be rebid. I guess it really depends upon, the finances.
Yeah,
But we'll have to backtrack from there.
okay.
and
Were
start
were you able to get some type of an estimate as for the online version versus doing it manually?
Yeah, the online, well, it's not an online, it's an online portal that does a lot of the legwork for the primarily for the delivery and receipt of the RFQs. They do an initial sort and analytical review of them. It also handles the, it also handles the references. They do bulk references, which was a lion's share of the work that was done. And that online portal is $4,500. We just used it for the town of Swansea. And then there's some time that KVA would be investing in that, and we would be investing in that as well. I'd have to say that it's probably the pre-qualification is going to cost another $10,000.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I just had a question about this 120-day rebid. What specific law is that you're citing?
I have it.
It was from DCAM, and it's not a specific, the way that the AG has phrased it, maybe you have it, the email from him.
I do have an email.
Yeah. he had indicated that it's not specifically written, but they feel that 120 days is appropriate, and the town, the way he put it was, it would be in the town's best interest to make sure that, the bidding environment was, the contractors were checked. Because someone's stature within DCAM, or their financial situation, or their quality of work could have changed from the last time that they were checked. So they feel it's in the town's best interest if we're gonna go past 120 days to go through the process again.
It's 810 CMR 9.08. Gas item 12 is 12 in parentheses, so,
All right, thank you.
okay.
Jen, can you give that back to me?
Sure. Sorry, I scrolled too far. 810 CMR 9.08. And
Okay,
item 12 or
yep, that's good.
paragraph 12, I don't know. He
That's
didn't
good.
read the whole thing. And if we do, well, going the pre-qualification again route, I was estimating, I don't know if anyone, like if you had checked into my numbers or anybody checked it out, but I'm thinking we'd be, from the time we decide to get going again, 13 weeks before we can receive bids again. That was my first shot at a timeline of where we would be at. Because we have to start the pre-qual process, that takes time. And we know even how long bidding takes. So, you gotta get the pre-quals first, and then you gotta bid sub-bid, the filed sub-bids, and then you gotta bid the GC. So all in all, like, I don't think we can do it any quicker than 13 weeks. So if you said, go tomorrow and get it started, we have a little ways until we can receive bids.
We're in April then,
Was that 13 weeks to the point of bidding?
It was to the point of bidding. Yeah, I was using 6 weeks of pre-qualification time, because first you have to ask these contractors to submit their stuff, and you have to give them time to do it.
Mhm.
And you have to give time for review. 6 weeks may be adequate, maybe maybe Rick and I need to talk about that more, but it was 6 weeks of pre-qual time. And then, after that's over, 7 weeks for bidding time.
So the 13 weeks included the bidding?
Included the bidding, so
Oh.
it takes us to the bid date,
To the bid.
To the bid date.
to receiving bids.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think it can go any quicker than that, but I threw it out there for us to look at.
So,
And I think it was 7 weeks for bidding time, because I think we need to have like 3 weeks for filed sub-bids, 3 weeks for GCs after that. Plus, you do have a week of filing this in the central register and advertising. Like, there is that time too that we have to plan into this timeline.
we can get together, thank you for pulling that together. We can put together a timeline that won't change really. It's
Right.
just, okay, depending upon when you want to go out to bid, this is what your timeline will be. This is when you
Right.
would have to start this.
Right.
And trust me, we don't want to go through that process again.
No.
I don't know if your wife does that.
Can we hire her?
But if you can find a way to get around it, great. It's really a recommendation that we're making, and if the town wants to utilize the information that's available to them, and that's fine with us. It's not a fun process.
All right, update on funding sources. I did receive a quick notification from the contact at Congressman Neal's office. Essentially, the 90-day continuance that they passed just in the last week or so, whatever the president signed, that basically pushed out everything, that they have no scheduled vote on this funding at this point. So, you know, we submitted that package back in February, and I asked her about resubmitting for additional funds, and she's saying that it's usually February, could be March, but, you know, we're already there, and they haven't even voted, they have not put a final vote on what they were talking about last year, so.
Well, he's here tomorrow. So
Yeah.
we'll grab him tomorrow.
Counselor?
Could you just, I know we talked about it before the meeting, could you touch on the USDA grant again?
Yes, so the 913,000 for USDA, Peg Dean and I have been in contact with USDA, and they have assured us that they have no intent of taking those funds away from us. They are supposed to provide us a package by tomorrow to sign and offer continuances, and we don't know, but we anticipate another year being added with this paperwork, so.
Good.
It's encouraging.
And as far as on the town side, we had a meeting yesterday with our finance team and our person that we had hired to close out the FY '23 year, so we're trying to actively close that out so we can get free cash certified, so we can determine if we have any available funds there. And I was in contact with the Division of Local Services, Sean Cronin, yesterday as well. We got on that as soon as we can get that information over. Hopefully we can have free cash certified, and then a review of the other available funds to make a determination of possible local funds.
All right, if there's nothing else there, I didn't see any additional invoices, so I have
Yay!
Wow.
no money to approve right now. And then suggested next scheduled meeting date. What are we thinking at this point?
Can I just go back for a moment?
Yep.
We're gonna continue to pull this together to as a classified site. It sounds like the committee is, the town thinks it's a good idea. As we get closer to where you might think you are with free cash and the budget, just remember that any upfront leeway you can give us would be great, because, you know, if you were to call tomorrow and say, okay, start, you know, it's gonna be 8 to 12 weeks. If we have to pre-qualify, it's gonna be even greater, but just to get the drawings out in the street, start the process over, we've gotta crank up the engine, so it's not something that we can just start immediately. So any lead time we can get would be great.
There are a few changes that will need to be made to the documents. It can't be putting the same set out. Little things like changing the dates on everything, okay, that's one thing. But now that we pulled the Snow Street properties out of it, there needs to be some update to some of the site and civil information, so that we're not asking the new bidders to bid that again. So we do need to work on updating those drawings. That's one thing that would need to happen. There would be, I don't know, a couple little minor things, but we can't, it's not ready to pour it out.
And changing the bidding structure for the,
Right.
For the
For
soils.
soils.
So.
All right, with that, how far out are we looking at this point?
You wanna see if we can schedule a meeting for a couple weeks out, just to stay engaged?
That would be
I'd love to
the-
do it remotely.
That would be the third.
I'd rather hear.
If it's just an update on
Yeah.
funding,
Counselor, I understand your concerns with it, and the reason I said tonight was suggested for it was the fact that we were spending money tonight and securing a contract, and, you know, that is something. But if we're just doing quick updates, and, you know, we haven't, and, you know, some of those meetings only last 20 minutes long, so, you know, I would, honestly, I think it's a burden on them to come out here for, traveling an hour and a half, you know, for a 20-minute meeting, so,
Yeah.
Pay them a lot of money.
you know.
Yeah, I'd appreciate too. I mean, if it's only gonna be short and sweet. I mean, unfortunately, we all know some people just don't pay attention to whatever I mean, they're clueless. We're seeing it on trash, okay?
We do have the ability to take this video of a Zoom meeting or a COVID meeting and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we do have the video, if that's the concern about.
I-
You're the only council that shows up, or the only individual in the.
The other
reason why
suggestion
you wanted to
that
go.
I would make at this point is that we'll tentatively schedule it as a virtual meeting. And if there's something that's anticipated on the agenda that makes it more substantial, we can make that adjustment.
If you could post the meetings on the town's website, the video, appreciate that.
Sure. All right, so we're looking at the 7th. (4:30) remotely, it's February 7th.
What is it, February 7th?
Yeah, February
Yeah.
7th, remote.
4:30.
All right, with that,
If I could, to the town manager, Jack, I'm gonna, the committee approved the award to Costello this evening for the demo.
We got that over there.
Yeah, so, I'll send you a notice of award, that we just have to go on the letterhead, you sign it, get it back to me, I'll get it to Costello. The contract has already been, we've been through the contract, the template, boilerplate, whatever we wanna call it, is all set, so Jennifer will get that roughed out. I'm seeing this happening pretty quick, so I'll draft up a notice of award, I'll also draft up a notice of the proceed, and we'll issue that once we get the contract back with the insurance certificates, and we're all good to go, so just to give you a heads up, and I can send that through Matt if you like.
Yeah, if you, yeah, just copy me.
Yep.
Just copy me as well.
Okay, thank you.
And then, I'll have to go to council with that, but I already talked to the chair, we have another contract for our curbside. Vice chair doesn't know this because it happened just within the last couple hours, was for our utility billing for our curbside, that we're gonna have to do a presentation on contract award too. So hopefully actually, I was looking at February 7th for that meeting date, so.
Okay, would it make sense to try to get the contract all squared away in your hands for that meeting as well?
Yes, if you could do that, that'd be
Okay.
great. If not, then it would be February 11th at our regular meeting.
Okay, that gives us good material to go with.
Yeah, that way it can just get approved and ready to go right away.
Okay, good.
all right, if nothing else, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?